I was in class on Zoom. I wanted to go to sleep, honestly, because like when I'm tired, I go to sleep. I end up falling asleep and then class ends and everyone starts leaving the class except me, because I was like in a whole other universe at this point. I was dreaming, I was flying. At this point, me and the teacher are alone in the call. This is the best part. Then the teacher starts talking to me and he's like, Samantha, wake up. Samantha, please. Samantha, you have another class. He woke me up, but I was half awake, so I didn't really know what was going on. So I thought it was my brother waking me up, and I straight up yelled. I was like, shut up, you fat booger. And so then I realized, oh shit, I just called my teacher a fat booger. And now he scheduled a parent conference. I'm going on Monday, so I'm really excited.
This is why you should never spend the night on Niku Island. In 1937, while on her flight around the world, Amelia Earhart mysteriously vanished over Howland Island in the Pacific Ocean. Despite an enormous search, she was never found. 3 years after her disappearance, a scientist discovered an incomplete skeleton on this tiny, uninhabited island called Niku Island that wasn't too far from Howland Island. It looked like whoever's bones these were, they had been ripped limb from limb. But when the bones were examined, they determined they were not Amelia Earhart's. But in 2017, a forensic anthropologist re-examined the bones and determined they were almost definitely Amelia's. So scientists went to Niku Island and they found freckle cream, something Amelia was famous for using. So the working theory is she crash-landed on Niku Island and she fell asleep somewhere on the beach. Then, after smelling her blood, hundreds of 3-foot-wide coconut crabs came out of their burrows, swarmed her, and ate her.
Worst way to get cheated on Storytime ever. This is not my story, the story is from a follower. Everybody always noticed all these red flags in my boyfriend Carl, but of course I did not see it. Everybody always felt like he was faking his affection towards me, and for some reason I just did not see that. I'm like, I love him and y'all can go get a life. Then it went from him faking his affection to us not being affectionate at all. Like we went months without any physical intimacy. So I went to go talk to my dad about it to get a male's perspective, and he was completely on Carl's side. Like, maybe he's just busy at work, blah, blah, blah. Every excuse in the world. So I was like, well, Dad, do you think you can talk to him and see where his head's at? He agreed really fast. He said, I'll invite him over later to talk, but you can't be here because I don't want your presence to throw him off. I was like, okay. So they're talking for about an hour, but about an hour into it, I realized that me and Carl had a movie date planned. So I used my spare key and went back into the house. They weren't in the living room. So I went upstairs and saw the worst thing I could have possibly seen. Him cheating on me with my father.
Story time on how my own best friend set me up. Trigger warning, sexual assault. So when I was 13, 14 in the 8th grade, I met this girl, which we're going to call Aubrey. Throughout that year, we became really close friends, and we even went to each other's houses just about every day. And at that time, I was a virgin. I was very insecure, and I didn't know my worth. And definitely attracted to the wrong boys. And that's how me and Aubrey related. We bonded over trauma, which can be toxic. But anyways, one day we met these boys. At that time, I didn't know who these boys were, and Aubrey pretended not to know them either, but I had no idea. They had to be like 17, 18, but I actually really don't know because they probably lied about their age anyway. So we started hanging around these boys, which we're going to call Stick and George. And at that time, I really liked George. Throughout our weeks of hanging out, they asked if I ever smoked Mary Jane, and I said no because I've never smoked. Push come to shove, I get peer pressured into doing it. And I think it was laced. Come back for part 2. This is part 2 of how my own best friend set me up. Trigger warning, sexual assault. So like I said earlier, I got peer pressured into smoking Mary Jane, and I think it was laced. Throughout that time of being intoxicated, I didn't know what was really going on. And remember the guy I told you guys about, George? Well, he had his way with me and my friend. Aubrey knew about it but didn't say anything. I didn't realize the severity of the situation and definitely didn't agree to anything that happened. As time went on, I started to gain my memory back on what was actually going on and started to understand, and I decided to tell my family. But nothing happened. It was almost like the person who did it to me got a slap on the wrist for what he did. Last year, I went on a girls' trip with my friends. It was fun, but towards the end, we had to pack up and leave. So while all the girls were packing up, me and one of my other friends went downstairs to the front desk to give the key card. When we went down there, the lobby was packed with a bunch of girls, and I'm guessing it was for a ladies' retreat. So the line was extremely long, and there was this really pretty lady that skipped the whole line, but no one noticed. So I assumed that she skipped because she was with the other girls in the retreat. She got her key card and got her room. Fast forward, after we give up our key cards to the front desk, we went back to our rooms to pack. 15 minutes later, we get a loud knock on the door, and it's the police. I opened the door, and he asked me and my friends, have we seen this girl anywhere? And it was a girl with a popsicle stick, and immediately I said no. One of my roommates said, oh, she's really pretty. And then I said, wait a minute, that was the same girl that had skipped the line. The police told us to stay in our room until further notice because that same girl went to her husband's hotel. She cut off his pee-pee, then pushed his mistress over the balcony. And now she's running through the hotel. This is why you should never have two best friends, but instead, one friend. Be careful of being the third wheel. When I was in high school, I had two best friends, Naomi and Cassandra. One Saturday night, we went to a party. When we went back home, we didn't have rides back home. Also, by the way, when we were in the party, Cassandra met this guy. When we stood outside the party looking for a way to get home, the guy Cassandra had talked to earlier had pulled up in his car. And he asked her if she needed a ride. She, of course, asked if he could take me and Naomi home. He said yes, but he only had room for one more person, and he told her to choose. And she chose Naomi. And in that moment, I really realized who were really the best friends. I asked him to please not leave me there alone, so Cassandra asked the guy if he could come back for me and pick me up. And being the good guy that he was, he said yes. But when they left, he never came back for me. The three best friend trio.
Worst way to get cheated on Storytime ever. This is not my story. The story is from a follower. Everybody always noticed all these red flags in my boyfriend Carl, but of course I did not see it. Everybody always felt like he was faking his affection towards me, and for some reason I just did not see that. I'm like, I love him and y'all can go get a life. Then it went from him faking his affection to us not being affectionate at all. Like, we went months without any physical intimacy. So I went to go talk to my dad about it to get a male's perspective, and he was completely on Carl's side. Like, maybe he's just busy at work, blah, blah, blah. Every excuse in the world. So I was like, well, Dad, do you think you can talk to him and see where his head's at? He agreed really fast. He said, I'll invite him over later to talk, but you can't be here because I don't want your presence to throw him off. I was like, okay. So they're talking for about an hour, but about an hour into it, I realized that me and Carl had a movie date planned. So I used my spare key and went back into the house. They weren't in the living room, so I went upstairs and saw the worst thing I could have possibly seen. Him cheating on me with my father.
So when I was about 5 or 6, I had a best friend named Maggie who lived next door. We would always go outside and play together. One day around dinner time, we saw a little girl around our age staring at us on the side of another nearby house. She was extremely pale and wearing a white dress. We would see her for days on end in the exact same dress. And as soon as we would yell for her to come play with us, she would run around to the front of her house. One day, we finally decided to chase after her. As soon as we rounded the corner to her front yard, she was gone. Like, she had literally disappeared. When we were walking back, we noticed a pile of dirt next to our house. In the dirt was written K-A-R-A with a stick next to it. We just assumed she was shy and wrote her name out for us, Kara. The next day, we saw her again and started yelling, Kara, Kara, wait! We ran after her again, rounded the corner, and saw this old couple doing yard work in our front yard. We assumed that they were Kara's parents. So we asked them, hey, where's your daughter Kara? And they were like, that's not funny. And we were like, no, seriously, we've been seeing her every night. We just wanted to know if she wanted to come play with us. The old man looked at us and said, our daughter Kara got hit by a truck and died 30 years ago in front of this house.